Stainless steel versus carbon steel. When it comes to their non-stick properties, which one's better? And how does each pan behave and perform? Well, in this video, we're going to be doing a simple egg test, but this time we're going to be looking at the thermal properties of each pan through the lens of a thermal imaging camera. And we're going to be looking at specifically, when does the egg actually release? Why it's so important to properly preheat your pan, and which pan is generally more forgiving. Let's dive in. So how much different is carbon steel versus stainless steel? A couple weeks ago, I bought a thermal imaging camera and I did a quick post asking you guys to give me some suggestions on how to use it. A great suggestion made by a couple of you guys was, hey, could you do a quick egg test comparing carbon steel versus stainless steel? And I thought that was a great idea. So jumping straight to the conclusions, for those of you that don't want to watch the rest of this video and just want the results, carbon steel was a lot more forgiving than stainless steel. So what do I mean by that? Well, your window of making a mistake and recovering with carbon steel is a lot larger than with stainless steel. So basically, if you didn't preheat your pan correctly, or maybe you overheated your pan and you're scorching your pan, with carbon steel, there's a little bit more flexibility. You still can salvage your mistake. With stainless steel, the window of opportunity is a little bit tighter, a little bit smaller. So if you guys are looking for a video specifically about how to preheat your pan, or a tutorial on how to preheat your pan, this is not the video for you. I've actually already made that video. In that video, I went through several different examples and I actually compared cast iron versus carbon steel versus stainless steel. And I showed you guys several different visual ways to kind of learn how to preheat your pan. If you guys want to see a revision, or maybe I missed something, leave me a comment below and I'm happy to revisit it. Now, most of you guys out there know that carbon steel is very non-stick. It shares all of the properties of cast iron and some of the properties of stainless steel into this really great pan that can basically do it all, with some exceptions. Not as non-stick as a traditional Teflon pan or whatever, but pretty darn close considering. Stainless steel can also be very non-stick, but you have to really mind the fundamentals like preheating and watching your temperature control, reducing your temperatures, making sure you're not overdoing it or underdoing it, and you have to be Johnny on the spot with those dials. Stainless steel is incredibly responsive. That's a pro and a con. So let's check out the egg test putting carbon steel against stainless steel, and we'll see exactly what the thermal imaging camera was showing and my thermal gun. Up first was my favorite carbon steel pan, the Mineral Bee by DeBuyer or DeBoyer. We preheated the pan, but first things first, we had to set the emissivity levels between the gun and the thermal imaging camera to make sure they were accurate and comparable. Once we got the light and frost effect temperatures, we dropped in our oil and then immediately lowered the pan and dropped in our egg to make sure we were not overheating the egg or the pan. And the carbon steel pan immediately became non-stick and the egg released somewhere between 350 and 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Up next was our 3-ply budget-friendly stainless steel pan, and we had to reset the emissivity levels because stainless steel is reflective. We made sure that the gun and the thermal imaging camera matched. We again preheated our pan to the light and frost effect temperatures and then dropped in our cooking oil, in this case it's avocado oil, and then lowered our pan temperatures, making sure we did not overheat the pan and fry the egg at extreme temperatures. Then we dropped in our egg. And the egg again naturally released somewhere between 350 and 375 degrees Fahrenheit, all on its own. It's a beautiful thing. Stainless steel can be incredibly non-stick if you properly preheat your pan and mind your temperatures. Because stainless steel is very responsive, it's very easy to shoot past your temperatures and really quickly overheat whatever it is you're trying to cook. So in that respect, it's very non-forgiving. Just make sure you watch your temperatures, and cleanup will always be a breeze. So isn't the thermal imaging camera really cool? That's why I like it. It has its flaws, it's not perfect, and to be honest, I'm not using it for what it's intended to be used for by the manufacturer. But I still think it's really cool because it gives a visual indication of what's going on. And it's really cool just to look at it and see how things are changing, how things are behaving if you had the lenses or the eyes of thermal sensing. And I also love using my thermal gun. It's a very cheap tool, very reliable tool. Anybody can buy one. I have a link in the description below. I have an Amazon store. You guys can go on there and pick out everything that I use on this channel, everything that you guys see. But you can buy the thermal gun for yourself and conduct your own experiments and see how things are changing and behaving and so forth. There's a couple of mistakes that beginners make when they first start learning how to cook, and it's always in some way, shape, or form related to preheating your pan. And that could mean not preheating your pan hot enough, it's too cold, but what I see more often is people way overheating their pan, scorching their pan, taking it above the smoking point of the oil, and then trying to fry an egg, and it's a disaster. A really good visual tool, and it's in my preheating video, is the lighting frost effect. The lighting frost effect will tell you if your pan's too cold. Now, it won't necessarily tell you if your pan's too hot or by how much. It can visually tell you if your pan's too hot because you'll see the bubbles kind of, violently exploding, but you won't have an idea by how much. The reason why it works so well for a cold pan is because you don't care how cold your pan is. You just need to know if it's reached the preheating levels that you need. And if you get that perfect lighting frost effect, then you know that your stainless steel pan or almost any pan is properly preheated. The mistake that a lot of people make is they keep that heat, and that heat keeps building and building and building, and then they try to fry an egg and the egg doesn't need all that heat, and it just kind of dominoes from there and your pan's overheating. What I typically do is I get my pan to the light and frost effect, I add in my oil, and as soon as I add in my oil, I just lower the temperature all the way down. I put in my egg, I even lift the pan up a little bit, and I let the pan cool while the egg is cooking. You gotta remember, the pan needs to be that hot to be properly preheated and to accept the oil and be non-stick, but the egg doesn't need to be at 450 degrees plus. That's way too hot to fry an egg. So taking your burner down and going on low, letting things cool, letting the egg properly cook at the temperature it should cook, which I found, according to the thermal imaging camera in the gun, it was around 350 and 375 degrees. That was the happy place for the egg to be, to properly cook and then get that non-stick effect. But the pan and the oil initially was way hotter than that. We were at 450 degrees, and we put in the oil was still kind of cold, but it was absorbing all that heat. The pan was starting to get hotter, and then we dialed down that temperature and allowed everything to kind of drop, put the egg in, it was still dropping, and we got that happy medium. Okay, now the comparison between carbon steel and stainless steel. It's exactly what I've been preaching. It's exactly what we all already kind of know, but it was cool to see it. As far as a non-stick egg test, carbon steel is a bit more forgiving. Both pans are incredibly non-stick. If you get your temperatures right, you're gonna have a really non-stick pan. The stainless steel pan did a great job. But with carbon steel, it's just a little bit more easier. And I don't think that's surprising. I don't think that surprised anybody, right? I think some of you are pretty surprised to see stainless steel behaving so non-stick. But again, if you mind the fundamentals, if you really concentrate on learning how to preheat your pans, managing your temperatures, temperature control, and really shooting for getting to know the pan and understanding how that pan behaves, you'll be able to do anything. I promise you that. So just focus on those fundamentals. With stainless steel, you gotta fall down a little bit more than with other pans. It's a little bit more of an expert tool, but once you get the hang of it, you're gonna love it. This was a lot of fun. I really like using the thermal imaging camera, and I hope you guys like seeing it. I hope it's informational. Please suggest some future videos. I am reading all the comments, and I have a list of future videos to tackle that I can't wait to get to. That's it for me, guys. I hope you found this video informative, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care, everybody.